Well, hello there. Welcome to a little BTS stream. We're filming Ask Dr. Bitcoin. Today we're going to be looking at some excerpts from some speeches from a gentleman who spoke at the North American Blockchain Summit by the name of David Johnston, who is heavily involved with something called the Morpheus Project. It's all about decentralized AI. We're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna do some like reaction videos. Basically, we're gonna watch some of the clips and we're gonna talk about them and see where we go from there. So, if you're into all
I
that, stay tuned.
sincerely believe.
Sorry, it's all right. Should I keep talking, or you got the thing?
No, you ready?
Yep.
That AI is how.
Oh wait, I'm not seeing it though. Okay, there it is.
Okay.
I sincerely believe that AI is how crypto gets to the first billion users, right? I think back to like 1998. Who here was around in 98 and used Google for the first time, right? That was
So this is actually I've
transformative,
heard
right? If you remember
somebody
the web
say
bef-
that this is like Google a couple of times in the last week. There was a buddy of mine named Jackson who he had just I post all this stuff to stories and he hadn't always clicked on it or listened to everything I had to say, but he saw something that we had said about AI, and it's the revelation. People that have been around for a minute talk about the stuff that you can do with ChatGPT and modern LLMs a little bit like uh, it was revelatory to them in the same way that using Google for the first time or using or writing their first HTML code in the 90s. It's definitely he nails the sense of wonder and dopamine rush you get from getting something successfully accomplished using modern LLM tools.
for Google, it was janky, right? It was hard to use. It was very technical. You're like navigating directories, typing in IP addresses, right? It wasn't easy, right? And so 1998, there were only 100 million users of the web, right? Google shows up, takes away all the technical barriers. You've now got this magic box. You just tell it what you want. I want to see a sports website. It curates the entire internet and gave you the best option, right? That's how the internet got to 1 billion users, right?
I mean,
You
that's
have
exactly
to
correct.
remove all the
The way so one of the first stories that I broke that kind of put me on the map as far as tech journalism was the story of Android uh, and the Google phone when Google was working on a phone. And when I was talking to my source at Google about that, what they were telling me is that they were facing a problem with growth at Google because they at that point were servicing the entire internet from like 1998 forward. And of course, the Google phone story slash Android story starts showing up towards the uh like the the beginning of like the 2002 2003 to 2006 era. And so the whole point of that was to grow the size of the internet. The only way to grow the size of the internet and thereby grow their own customer base was to make computing affordable and easy. And so what he's drawing here, the comparison he's drawing here is that is ChatGPT and OpenAI and modern LLMs do that exact thing. They make anything that they touch, anything that it is attached to, as easy as talking to another individual, another person. So it is truly transformative, regardless of what you think of all the underlying technology challenges or the capitalistic intent behind it.
You have to remove all the technical barriers for people and make it easy for everyone to access. That's where we are in crypto today, right? It's 1998. It's not easy to use. There are a few 100 million people using it, but it has value to offer to billions of people, right? That's where I think we're at.
This is like he goes fast through this, and it's a short clip, so it's a little bit edited, but he's like so right on. As many of you know, I took about a year off from the internet and crypto, not by choice. And I was going back through some shared projects about a couple of weeks ago with a buddy of mine, Shlomo, who he and I worked together on the Free Rostow project. And we were just trying to, access one of the smart contracts that we had created during that time. And, different protocols had slightly changed and evolved, and the code base that was, wrapped around that particular smart contract hadn't been upgraded. And it was literally like a 3-week affair for us, like finding the time to work together on it. But then, like, we sat down and it should have been a 25-second, push this button, and it's done. And just through like all the constellation of apps and smart contracts and outdated web pages, it was at least an hour and a half, 2 hours of trying to move some tokens from one wallet to another. So um, this is for people like Shlomo and I, who are involved in some of the highest profile crypto projects on the internet. And it took us an hour and a half, 2 hours to play with some tokens that were very easy to move around a year ago. And if you're talking to people who are uh, quote unquote normies, right? How would you get them to you know play in that world? I mean, these tools are powerful. They bank the unbanked. They will make corporate governance more egalitarian and more accessible, but only if you can understand how to use the tools. And that's where that he is exactly what he says. The short version of what he said is the long version of what I just said. That's where we're at. We're at like 1998, where you have to know HTML to use the web. Well, we're at 1998 for crypto, where you have to understand Solidity and smart contracts and blockchain architecture just to use a cryptocurrency wallet and use these freedom enabling tools.
AI is going to come in and make it so easy to use crypto. Now, what does crypto have to offer AI? The other side of the coin is AI needs decentralized compute. It needs a way to do payments online. It needs to reward open source developers that build the agents. These are the things Web3 was built for. So it's the perfect match between the AI community benefiting from the infrastructure Web3 has and the Web3 community, crypto, benefiting from the new interfaces that the AI builders have created.
So what we've
They
talked about
put
on the show in various contexts over the last 6 months is how ChatGPT, Sam Altman, and a lot of the people that are in the AI space are on a journey to build something they call AGI. And one of the tools that they're going to use to do that is something called intelligent agents. So what is an intelligent agent in this context? It is a constellation of software, probably powered by an LLM like ChatGPT, that has an intent. So it doesn't have to wait around for a human to type some words into it to do its thing. It's living on its own, studying, the inputs that it needs to study, and doing the thing that it is tasked with doing, or is given an animus in short form. So uh, I was working with one such architecture for an intelligent agent called AutoGPT. And I had given it some task. I can't remember what it was, but it had something to do with probably like it was uh, one of their example problems to solve. And I think it was like build a poker game or something like that. And it had gotten stuck in a particular part where it needed to access part of the uh, API documentation for OpenAI itself, and it was couldn't find what it was looking for in the documentation, and it wound up in conversation with the chatbot that sits in the help section for OpenAI to understand something about API rate limiting or something like that. And I could actually watch as it was scrolling by on its own, for about 30 minutes where it was in conversation with another chatbot, getting little tiny chunks of knowledge and moving the ball down the field in terms of what the project was supposed to be. And it occurs to me that in a future where this is commonplace, where we have AI, intelligent agent directed software projects or any type of project, that tiny micro chunks of knowledge will be transactional. And how are you going to pay for that service of getting that knowledge? Because there is resources involved with powering the agent on both sides of the table, right? And the only thing that makes sense is cryptocurrency. And the only architecture that makes sense when you have a team of agents working together is a DAO. Like, these are solved problems in cryptocurrency. Why? Why is that true? The reason why that is true is if you're to if you're to give an intelligent agent a credit card, there has to be a human attached to that credit card. And so, what if the program is running in absentia from a human interaction completely, which is kind of the goal here? Uh, Western banking structures do not have the capability of recognizing things that are not entities born into the country with a social security number. Like, if you don't have a social, you don't have a birth certificate, you're not getting a bank account. Therefore, you can't pay for anything that you need to pay for, including transactional micro knowledge from another chatbot, for instance. But it is something that you've been able to do for the last 15 years with cryptocurrency. So what he is saying here is, again, this is me taking a long way to go to explain and give illustration to a couple of quick sentences, is that cryptocurrency has a ton to offer the end goal, the vision for AI, intelligent agents, AGI, chat GPT. It is the only way in which these things will function autonomously eventually.
They put in a compute limit, 10 to the 26 power, which is about as much computer power as the Bitcoin network uses in 3 minutes. So that's going to be the amount of compute you can use to train an AI in the US without registering with Homeland Security, right? Let me demystify this. This is just regulatory capture. Straight up, end of statement. Microsoft, Google, they wrote this executive order. Certainly Biden didn't write this executive order, right? They handed it to him and he signed it, right? They're trying to effectively prevent all the startups that are coming up and competing with them from really making a dent in their business, right? So this is a regulatory capture move to try to push out the startups that are trying to challenge these big tech incumbents. And so all of a sudden, the AI people have just learned that permissionless, decentralized systems are going to be really important.
So the context of what he's talking about there, it's kind of important to realize he's talking to a group of people that were gathered in Fort Worth, Texas, um, just been spoken to by a lot of politicians who were uh, talking very openly about Choke Point 2.0, which, if you've watched any of the videos that I've put out over the last 6 months, you know that I was caught on that dragnet. You know that it's existed to debank a lot of crypto service providers. It's not even, it's like an open secret. It's not even a very well kept secret. Banks and the Federal Reserve and certain government entities like Elizabeth Warren in the Senate have openly said, we think crypto is only good for terrorism and scam artists. Jamie Dimon said it a couple times this week, even as his bank, JP Morgan Chase, has participated in the Bitcoin ETFs that have launched. There is extreme regulatory capture that's in place that people in the crypto industry are well aware of. And it dovetails very nicely if you're an Elizabeth Warren, President Biden type, who is trying to tap into this populist movement of anti-big tech, because you see these new AI unicorn startups like OpenAI coming up out of nowhere, seemingly, and trying to change the tech landscape again. And so they're putting in these very, very restrictive guidelines written by lobbyists paid for by IBM, paid for by Oracle, the big tech, the real big tech, the enterprise players, because they want and they're frankly supported by Sam Altman because he knows his industry position, therefore supported by Microsoft as well. But they're putting in place these restrictions that will prevent people from openly experimenting. Right? We're still in a place where this technology is largely built on open source tech, open source code. That means anybody has equal access if they understand how to use this code. And they are attempting to create regulation around this that will specifically limit how much computing processing power you can apply before getting government approval to play with your code. So what he's speaking to again is within the context of everything I just said, but all these AI people, these people that experiment with AI are not necessarily crypto people. So for them, they're just what we crypto people call normies. They don't kind of understand that there is this thing called regulatory capture. They don't. If they understand it, they don't really care about it because it doesn't affect them. But they're seeing this thread being drawn between them and the crypto people, and as a result, their livelihoods are being threatened. And I think in this next clip, he goes on to talk about how it directly affects Texas economy too, because Texas has become one of the places to mine Bitcoin. A lot of data centers here, and not coincidentally, it's the same type of data center that is used to run large scale AI compute.
Think back to the past of Bitcoin. Most of the hash rate was not in the United States, right? It was overseas. And other countries became less favorable. Texas led the way with being very friendly. And we got a huge amount of miners and people moved here, right? Bitcoin and crypto have pioneered a system that works anywhere in the world. And so we can create competition between these jurisdictions, right?
Yeah. So what he's talking about there is China created some specific regulations several years ago, which caused it to be economically inviable to run large scale Bitcoin mining there and in Mongolian region of like that part of Asia. And so it moved to Kazakhstan, and it quickly overwhelmed Kazakhstan's electrical grid. They just weren't prepared for that amount of uh, tech infrastructure, power infrastructure. And so it went to Texas. I think that we have like 30 or 40% of the world's Bitcoin mining infrastructure has now found its way to Texas because of the way our grid works and how it's not connected in certain ways to the rest of the American grid, and the freedom with which that allows ERCOT, the governing body for uh, Texas Energy, to deal with large scale power users. So that's what's going to make Texas specifically a viable spot for a lot of this AI compute that's going to come out, because AI compute is largely fungible compute in the same way that Bitcoin mining is. In fact, a lot of the early AI uh, data center data centers that were used for training were using the same cards that were once used to mine Ethereum before it went to the proof of stake security system. So it stands to reason that even if you don't buy into what may sound conspiratorially like there is some sort of top-down collusion to impede competition in the AI space, you at least want to make sure it stays deregulated enough that economic interests in the state of Texas can take advantage of the business trying to come here.
After the executive order, we held a party protesting regulatory capture in San Francisco. And in one day, we had 700 people come out to say that they didn't want this. They wanted to keep open source. They wanted to decentralize AI. So we have a lot of people on our side. This is the shot from the event. He could recognize some of the symbols for accelerationism or computer die, right? There's a lot of funny memes that are coming out of all this. But I think Eric Voorhees, the great philosopher of our time, really captured this eloquently on Twitter when he said the importance of decentralizing AI is approaching the importance of decentralizing money. Because
So
if you
this
don't
is
have the
this is
right,
important to note for a couple of reasons. Mostly because Eric Voorhees is an early cypherpunk that has been instrumental in the development of Bitcoin and other blockchain technologies. He's been behind what's now called Thorchain, and it was Shapeshift, I think, at one point, basically allowing a lot of decentralized on-chain activity that was once, it was he's enabled technology that is once was requiring centralization, now can be done in a decentralized manner, which is good for the ecosystem. He is a what I would call a decentralization maximalist, not a particular cryptocurrency maximalist, which is why he's found his way to the decentralized AI movement here. And he's involved in the project that David Johnston's involved with, Morpheus. Um, a lot of the early adopters of Bitcoin, like Balaji is talking about here, is also involved in Morpheus. Mark Andreessen has been posting a lot of memes that are, known to be associated with, the movement. And so I guess his speech and kind of this video that we're recording here, all kind of come together to underscore that a lot of the influential people that made Web3 and made early cypherpunk technologies like Bitcoin possible are now saying we must decentralize AI and are actively working to do so. In fact, Eric Voorhees released a kind of a internal white paper for the Morpheus project last week that talks about the tokenomics of incentivizing decentralized compute for AI. So there's a lot of activity going on. You can see the URL on his shirt, more.org, which has links to the white paper and links to all the data and the Discord and socials for the project. But it's definitely where things are going. And so you may be asking yourself, how do you make something centralized like OpenAI decentralized? The answer is you don't, right? So OpenAI can't be decentralized, but there are the models that they use and the technology they use is all built on open source code. There's something like 68 different LLM models that you can use for different purposes, and it's all run through kind of a framework known as Llama, uh, with the L, L, and M of Llama being capitalized because since it's an LLM platform. So, but that's the technology that's underneath it all, and then you combine that with Ethereum and Ethereum layer EVM layer twos, and essentially you're creating a set of protocols that the end user won't have to know anything about. But if you're a nerd like me or a nerd like David that wants to get involved in what could essentially be, for lack of a better word, the next Bitcoin or the next Ethereum, the Morpheus project is possibly it. All the people that were involved in making these past types of projects a massive success are coalescing around this idea and this project in particular.
and then, really just to hit the nail on the head, is Balaji said it well, where a free internet means free AI. We will fight government control over compute with everything we have, right? And I think that's the right way to think about it, And being here, at a policy summit, I would call upon Texas, right, to stand up for the right to compute. Who has the most to lose from this new executive order? It's Texas. Where are those chip foundries being built? They're being built in Texas. Who do you think's going to use the chips if there's an arbitrary limit on the amount of compute that people can do in the US? This will cost Texas billions of dollars and thousands of jobs. But this is the kind of thing that the state should stand up against, right? And be approaching Biden on this unconstitutional executive order, right? I think that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I kind of jumped ahead of where he was at with what I was previously saying, but yeah, he's underscoring the fact that it's a limit on. I mean, code is speech. Supreme Court has said that, and this is a therefore unconstitutional limit on the amount of speech that you're allowed to have simply because it's part of a uh, protocol framework called an LLM, and they're afraid of it because they watch too many reruns of Terminator movies. That's essentially where we're at. They've the people that want to have regulatory capture on AI to protect their incumbent position. Their very nascent incumbent position. I mean, even the oldest AI company, IBM, has only got really a 10 or 15-year lead on the rest of the world. Uh, they are preying on the Hollywoodization of AI and hoping that you remember every you know movie about robots and AI from the last 20 years and are afraid that that's what's going to happen because a chatbot can do some reasonable decision making. So and in so doing, they've created an unconstitutional executive order that will likely go unchallenged unless you know people mobilize behind the message that David is talking about here.
The administration put a hard cap on the amount of gigabytes of size the AI can be. 20 gigabytes. 20 gigabytes. My laptop has more space than the permissionless AI
My
you'll
phone
be
has
out
more
allowed
space
to
than that.
use without registering with Homeland Security. I kid you not.
Yeah, I mean the arbitrary limit is ridiculously small.
Another great person to highlight is Mark Andreessen, who created the modern web browser and is famous for being a venture capitalist, has suggested that we should legalize math. And I think that that's a good call to action that most reasonable people would agree with. And hasn't stopped posting come and take it memes for 2 weeks solid, of which I really appreciate all these math based come and take it
I really
memes,
like the
right? I mean, it
transformer
just kind
one.
of points out the absurdity of what's going on. The great philosopher Beth Bezos put out that, they tried to do this with crypto. Now they're trying to shut down AI. It's time to join forces, right? So we're seeing people that are interested in AI come together with people interested in crypto.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of another clip that underscores a lot of the message from the rest of the talk is that it's a match made in heaven. There's a lot of reasons to want to support the free speech that exists behind the code of AI and LLMs. We'd be not just killing off a potential avenue for innovation, but economically harming a lot of people, at least in our region of the country in Texas, by basically not challenging the unconstitutional limit on speech.
I want to tell you a story about one of my heroes. This is Phil Zimmerman, for anybody that doesn't know him. And in 1991, when Joe Biden proposed a law to ban encryption for emails, this inspired Phil Zimmerman to release Pretty Good Privacy, commonly known as PGP. This became the global standard for privacy and encryption of emails and effectively made government attempts to ban math impossible to enforce.
I mean, that's just a good clip. I don't think I have a commentary on that one, but it's definitely a good clip.
I sincerely believe that AI is how crypto gets to the first billion users, right? I think back to like 1998. Who here was around in
This
98
is the
and used
first part of the list, I
Google?
think. Again, yeah, I think it. Yeah, loop back around. All right, I mean, I think I got out most of what I needed to get out. So, but yeah, now for anybody that's watching the live stream, we've been kind of doing some reaction. This is kind of a BTS stream, behind the scenes stream of what we're recording in the studio today. Part of a larger video that I'm going to be making about decentralized AI. But David Johnston, for those of you that are joined us in the middle, was speaking at the North American Blockchain Summit back in October. and was one of the only people to be talking about AI at the summit because he is involved with an AI decentralization project called Morpheus, and that's kind of what we've been talking to for the last 30 minutes or so. Yeah, so there's if you want to learn more about it, I think it's mor.org. Discord is very active. A lot of OGs from the crypto space are involved in the project. Wow, they updated the website.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Before it was like one button, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, looks good.
I have it downloaded. I need to explore a little.
It runs on Mac. Like I think mostly for like, I think it's a Windows version as well, but it's designed for like GUI operating system users. They are still working on the headless VPS version of the software. This is mostly just so that we can, and I say we because I'm actively experimenting with these folks. It's not a organization that has a head. It was the white paper was written anonymously by 3 individuals, and there's nobody making central decision making. It's all just like GitHub commits and collaborative project work and people in different breakouts. I'm working with the folks that are specifically focused on the Linux headless VPS edition, because the project that I want to do revolves around scaling the GPU infrastructure across cloud computing environments, which would require specifically that set of infrastructure to be established first. But
so,
go ahead.
This app I have right here that's loading, we'll see. But so you're saying this one has an interface and
yeah, so this is really just kind of like, so whenever Bitcoin first came out, there was something called the Qt client, which I think you could probably still download from bitcoin.org, but essentially it's the reference architecture for the whole network. So in the Qt client for Bitcoin, you'll have a wallet, a node, and the ability to mine on whatever machine you run it on. Of course, no general purpose computing platform, like no PC is going to have enough specialized compute to actually mine anymore. But this is similar to that. This is like a reference architecture client that you can play with, and it's open source, so you can deconstruct it and write it for other platforms. And it eventually will get very mitigated out into other types of interfaces for the various purposes that will have to exist on the network. And the goal, I know there's already a couple people working on a web version of the Morpheus kind of clone to ChatGPT to create a multimodal chat environment that uses the larger network that is connected through all these other clients like this for the Morpheus LLM.
how does the like tokenomics of this work, or like the economics of using this? Because it's just telling me to ask a question.
So right now it's really just, so you're probably just using the graphics card on the machine to run the LLM locally. But the like the event, and they're only operating on testnet right now. So this is not like a,
Got you. But would it work similar to like GPT Enterprise?
it'll
type
work.
system?
Yeah, it will eventually. And you, for whenever it, like the final vision of it is that there is a token release schedule. So there's just like Bitcoin or a lot of other blockchains, there's a finite number of Morpheus tokens that will exist, and there is a certain way in which those tokens will be distributed every block, going to capital providers, going to GPU providers, and then going to developers that help keep the system working. So, and then it'll be a diminishing a diminishing number of those over time, but you'll also need to own Morpheus tokens to interact with the network if you're not going to be using your own GPU. So if you're going to be doing large scale enterprise GPT stuff, like what I do for like our transcription or whatever on our internal application, when I have to like transcribe 1,800 videos, Obviously, if I was running that on a GPU on a machine, you see how fast it goes, right? It would take us weeks and weeks to do 1,800 videos transcribed at this speed because you're using a local GPU, but because I'm using OpenAI's thing,
Yeah.
it'll do it in a day or an hour or something.
But then, so that's the whole point, right? Like something like this would decentralize the computing
Mhm.
on that. That's cool as hell.
Yeah, that would make it not. And so there might be centralized websites that you go to that would. So maybe I'm just making up a thing. Maybe call it like Morpheus GPT or something like that. Somebody comes up with a clone of Chat GPT.
Yeah, that would live somewhere, but
it's using this network.
Yeah,
right.
Have you messed around with this?
A little bit. Yeah.
I want to do some comparisons to GPT 3, 5, and 4.
So you're going to see that this is going to be like the default model that they have in there is probably going to be pretty close to GPT 3.5. But like I said, there's 48 different open source models that are usable. And so part of what is going to be a challenge for this project is matchmaking users to the models in the back end. Because if you look at how OpenAI actually does their stuff, they're using a methodology that has evolved called multimodal LLMs. So if you go into GPT-4 and you say, analyze these statistics, it goes into basically code writing mode. Versus if you say, hey, go out on the internet and tell me everything that happened about, the Bitcoin ETF today, it's going into Bing research mode, right? That's multimodal. There's different things happening behind the scenes that you don't really know. Whereas this is all right now, currently just using a single model. The goal, of course, being to make it multimodal over time.
Got you. Yeah, I see like a decent alternative for 3.5, but
yeah.
Cool. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. That's it for this. We'll probably do some other clips that are relevant from Web3 Ready tonight.
Cool. So check back then.
Yeah.
I'm going to play our intro just because I missed it and I like it. And then we'll go out.
Cool. Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.